Hi guys, thanks for stopping by my channel today. Now on this video, I'm going to show you how I made this bling tumbler. Now I put all these on by hand, so this takes quite a while, but look at this result. Now the video is pretty long, so if you're stopping by just out of curiosity, you might get bored, but if you seriously want to make one of these, watch the video from start to finish. You're going to learn a lot, and then at the end, I'm going to reflect on a few things that I wish I would have known when I started. Now, on a recent video, I made this blinged out tumbler for myself, and it turned out beautiful. So I had a request from someone to make one for his wife. So on today's video, I'm going to show you how I make these tumblers. Now, there's a few really important things you need to know about this. First of all, the tumbler that you use is very important. And with the pattern that I'll use, I want a straight tumbler. And when I say straight, I mean that the diameter at the top is the same as the diameter at the bottom. Sometimes when you order these, straight wall just means they're smooth. They don't come down, then go in, then come down. So you have to make sure that you're really using the right tumbler if you're going to use the pattern that I'll use, and that's called the honeycomb pattern. Then another important thing is that this is really cleaned and that you sand it down to remove the polish. So let's start with those steps. First of all, I'm going to spray this with some alcohol just to clean off the fingerprints, the grease, anything that's on this. Then after I do that, I really want to try to keep my fingers off this. So the second step here is to give it a good sanding. This is a beautiful polished finish, but your glue and your rhinestones aren't going to stick to this as well as if you remove that polish. So that just takes a nice sanding. I'm using this sanding block. I've used sandpaper before. Either one is fine. Now you can see there's a lot of remnants right down here. I'll clean that off. I'm going to go wash this with some dishwashing liquid. I'll let it dry, and then we'll start our project. So the next step is to add a decal. This is Decal 651. It's a permanent vinyl, and the only reason that I have these lines at the bottom and the top is so that I can make sure it's straight. To transfer this to the cup, I'm just using your basic clear contact paper. Now, once again, these lines, oops, these lines just make it so that I can get it very straight on the cup. So I'm going to start up here at the top end. And I'm going to try to hold this up. It really wants to cling down to the cup, but I'm going to try to hold it up. That way I can make sure that my top piece is going really straight. Okay, now that I know that's straight, I'm just going to pull straight down, putting quite a bit of tension on it. Then I'll just work this till I know that it's smooth. Then I should be able to remove my transfer paper. If it starts coming up, just push it back down, give it a little more pressure, and then peel your backing off. Okay, I think that looks really good. So now I'm going to start putting my rhinestones at the top of the cup. Now to try to get those really even, I'm going to use this Velcro, and I'm just going to put it on the cup. Once I start putting the bling on, I'm sure I'm going to adjust this some, but basically it's going to give me a really straight edge for my bling. This top row is very important. If you don't get this top row right, then the rest of your cup's not going to be right. So you need to take all the time that you need to really get this top row straight. So the main rhinestones that I'm going to use on this are some SS20. They're clear stones. I got those off of Amazon. I'll link to those. Then the letters will mainly be these SS10s. They're a bright pink. But then I have some smaller bright pink ones if I need to fill in. And then I also have some smaller clear ones. These are called filler stones. So the main thing will be the 20s, but then as you get close to your letters and you can't fit those in, you use some filler stones. So I'm just going to dump some of these out on my tray. I love these trays. You can just put your rhinestones on them, kind of shake them around, and then they're easy to pick up with your rhinestone picker tool. Now here's what I like to pick up my rhinestones. This is just something I got off of Amazon. I got a pack of these. I got a pack of 2 of these for really not much. This came with a white wax tip. Since then, I've ordered some replacements. All you do is you screw those on, and it's good as new. Now that's what the replacements look like. You get quite a few of them. They end up costing probably less than $1 a piece. And then the 3 main types of glue that I see people use are this super tight, the liquid fusion, and the gem tack. And for my project, I'm going to use this liquid fusion. I've already put it in this little precision tip bottle. So I'll go ahead and uncover that. And then I like to take this little piece off. Otherwise, when you're adding the glue, the end of this is falling down into the glue. Okay, so to start with, I'll move that down just a little bit. Then I want to start at the back because you start here, you go around, and you end here. If it doesn't end up perfect, I really want that to be in the back side, not the front side. So I'm just going to put a thin line of glue on. I'm staying away from the very top so you don't see the glue. And I'm just going to start with maybe 2 to 3 inches of this glue. Then you just pick up your rhinestone, place it down, and then give a little push on it so it adheres to the glue. Now I'm going to place several of these, then I'll make some adjustments. As I'm placing them, I want them to be really close to each other. So I want them to touch. Now, one thing that's important to me is that I have glass rhinestones. You're spending a lot of money on your cup, you're spending money on your glue, you're spending a lot of time to do this. So to me, it's worth it to spend just a little bit more money, get the glass rhinestones, not the acrylic or the resin ones. These will bling so much better, and again, I just think it's worth it. So I'm going to push all these rhinestones up against the one next to it. Now this is where this straight band comes in. I'm going to push it up. Now I want my rhinestones to be close to the top of the cup, but I don't want them to come above the top. Otherwise, when you put the lid on, it's going to put pressure down against those and you could pop those off. Then I'm going to take a good look, see what needs adjusted ever so slightly, and make those adjustments. Okay, I think that's a really good start. So now I'm just going to press down with my thumb, being careful I don't slide them. Then I'm ready to keep going. Now you have to be careful because when this gets down to the blue silicone mat, I don't want to put pressure on those. So at some point, I'm going to have to set this up on something. I'll probably get a wood board or something like that. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and keep working. Now, one of the tricks is you want enough glue to hold these down, but not so much that it really oozes out and gets up on the side of the rhinestones. So I'm just making sure I push those together. I really want them to fit very tightly. Then once again, I'm going to use this band just to make sure they're really straight. You don't have to use a band like this. You could use a rubber band, you could use just some tape around it, or like I did with my first one, you can just eyeball it. Whatever works for you, that's what you need to do. Now, just like the last time, I want to put some pressure down using my thumb, but again, being careful that I don't really slide these. Now I can see that I'm getting a little closer to the top, so I'm going to press those down against my Velcro band. Okay, that looks good. Now let me grab something so I can build this up. Okay, so I just found this thin piece of wood. It really doesn't matter what it is. It could be a towel, a washcloth, really just anything so that you don't put pressure against these until they're dry. Now I'm just going to follow this process all the way around the top. Then I'll let this dry for at least 30 minutes. Now let me show you. This is really just a very thin band of glue. I don't want it messy. I don't want it globby. I just want a really thin band. Now I don't think I have enough glue under this one right here, so I'm going to push it off. Put a little bit more glue down. Okay, I feel much better about that. It really doesn't take a lot of glue, but you do want to make sure you have enough to make it adhere. Okay, I can see I'm getting a little bit wonky there, so I want to spend just a couple of minutes to get that straightened out. Now this is where I start getting nervous, because we're coming to the end and I'm hoping it comes out pretty close to perfect. Hopefully I can fit 2 more stones in there. Okay, it's a little bit narrow. Let me see if I can make just a little bit more room. Okay, that came out pretty perfectly. I've been really happy with these cups because they've come out just really nicely. Now, I need to let this dry for at least 30 minutes, maybe longer. I want those to really set because my next rows, I'll be pushing the rhinestones up against this row, so they need to be really tight and firm. So I'm just doing my last presses with my thumb. Then I'll set that up, let those dry. Okay, y'all, I fell asleep last night after I did this, so this dried all night. And I'm really pushing on these just to make sure they're adhered well, and they are. So I'm ready to move on to the second step. Now with the honeycomb method, you have all your rhinestones touching, and then your next row, you're going to place the rhinestones between the ones above it. So I'll put one there, and there, and there, and you just push them up against the top row, up into that gap. So from here on out until I get to the name, it's really easy. For me, it's kind of therapeutic. You can just sit, listen to a YouTube video, watch TV. Now, if you get bored easily, you might think it's monotonous, but give it a try at least just once. Okay, just like my first row, I don't want to start at the front, just in case something goes awry at the end. I want this to be very smooth, so I'll either start at the back or the side, somewhere where it wouldn't be so obvious. So I'm going to squeeze some out, and when I can, I like to do little dots. It's a lot of little dots, but I like to do it that way in case you do lose a stone. Instead of having a whole strand, the hope is you just lose that one stone, you can put it back on. I haven't lost a stone yet, but I did see this technique in somebody else's video. So try what works for you. So I'm just going to get really tight in there against the two rhinestones above it. I like to really smash that down into the glue. Now I'm not going to make sure that they're perfectly placed yet. Once I get about 10 on there, then I will. Okay, so I've used up all my glue, so what I want to do is really take a good look at this. You won't be able to see it as well now that I have it kind of facing toward me. I'm really going to push those up into the gaps. Put some pressure on them so they adhere to the glue. Then after those have dried for just a few minutes, each time I'll take my thumb, I'm putting pressure down and slightly up toward the top. So this is the process that I will follow until I get all the way really close to the name. Now notice I set my bottle down on the side. To me, that just makes sense because you don't have to wait for it to get all the way down to where it comes out. If you sit it upright, it has a lot further to travel. All right, we're on our last 5 rhinestones of the row, so let's hope they come together well. If not, I can use a slightly smaller rhinestone to fit it in, but I'm hopeful. Okay, they fit like a charm. Now, I'm pretty sure I told you these are SS20s. And with the cup I'm using, I think these are perfect. Not all cups are going to be the same diameter, the same shape. So you really just have to try, see if it works for you. If it does, stick with it. Well, I think that looks really good. So here's what it looks like after row 2. Now, I'm not going to bore you with doing this over and over and over. I'll do a few more rows. Then when I get close to the name, I'm going to go ahead and bling out the name. I'll bring my large stones up so that it's somewhat close to it, and then I'll start filling in with some smaller stones. So I'm going to keep adding rows, and I'll turn the camera back on when I get closer to the name. Okay, here's where it's going to start getting fun. I'm going to start filling in the name Heather with my pink rhinestones. Now I bought a bag of the SS10s, And that's this size right here. And then I bought a multi-pack, and I just put them in these containers from Walmart, but I bought a multi-pack of rose-colored rhinestones as well so that I'd have some for filler beads. So I'm just going to start right here at the end. And then sometimes when I'm working with smaller rhinestones, I prefer just to use a wax pencil, so I have that handy in case I decide to use that instead. So my bottle got just a little bit clogged while I was waiting, so I just have a pen that I put inside of it to clean it out. Okay, so I'm just going to run a bead of glue up the letter. I don't want to go too far because you only have so much working time with this. And I'm going to start with some smaller rhinestones. This is from my multi-pack. These are about an SS8. If the size of your rhinestone doesn't match the vinyl exactly, that's okay. This vinyl is just behind your rhinestones, number one, to kind of let you know where to put them. And then number two, you are going to see between the seams of the rhinestone or between the sides of the rhinestone, and so the pink behind it helps with that. The other thing is you want to match your vinyl, as well as you can to your rhinestones, but it doesn't have to be a perfect match. Okay, so I have a couple here. I'm just going to barely slide over just a little bit. Then I'm going to put a little pressure on the rhinestone so that they adhere down to the glue really nicely. Then I'll start going down this side of the H. I think I can get, I don't know, maybe one or two more of this size. Then I need to start getting a little bit bigger. So I'll move over to my SS10s. And then I actually have some larger ones here. Let's see. This size is an SS16. Let me see how that looks. Okay, I feel like it took too big of a jump too soon, so I'm going to move that down just a little bit. Add a little bit more glue. I'll put down one more of the SS10s, then I think I'll move on to these SS16s. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and take this one off, or at least move it down. I'll reuse it down here. I don't think it's wide enough. This is a really wide part of the H, so I'm going to move up to some SS20s. Okay, it's starting to narrow down. I think maybe one more SS20. Then I'll go back and use this SS16. Then it's starting to get quite a bit narrower down here, so I'll go back to the SS10s. Then, just like on the skinny part here, I'm going to go back down to these smaller stones. Again, these came in a multi-pack. I think they're SS8s. But they were all just in one bag. I had to separate them by myself. It took me like 3 hours. Okay, there's a really small gap right here. So these are some tiny little ones. And I'll go ahead and use one of those to fill in that little gap. And that's what we have so far. So that's the process I'm going to use. I'll do the whole name, then I'll go back and I'll keep working on the clear ones. Okay, so I have the word Heather done. I'm going to let that dry for at least an hour because I'll be shoving silver or clear rhinestones up against it. But I think that looks really good. Just wait till you see it filled in with the clear rhinestones. So you can see I started filling in some of the smaller areas with the clear rhinestones. And even though I videoed it, my camera was so far away, it just didn't really teach you anything. So I've left this one, I've adjusted my camera, and I'm going to show you how I do that. Now what I like to do is, I like to start in the smallest areas. So this little area up here, and this little area down here, especially this one. It's a little bit more pointed up there. And what I'll do is I'll put some glue down and then I'll figure out what size of rhinestone I need and I'll shove it all the way up against these pink ones. If it's too big, I'll go ahead and remove it, or if it's too small, I'll remove it and I'll find a better size. Now I like to fill in a decent size of the area with glue. And then I'm probably going to have to roll this toward me once in a while so I can really see it. But I'll try to show you as much as I can. Now this is my filler bead set. It's just a mixture of some smaller beads. This is the smallest bead that you get, or the smallest rhinestone you get. When I bought a set of these before, I thought I will never use those teeny tiny little rhinestones, but you really do. Especially if you need them to fill in things. So I'm using my little wax pencil. I like to use it when I'm placing smaller rhinestones. Okay, so I filled in that little top area with my little bitty rhinestone. Once I've put several in there, I'll push down on them just to make sure they're really attached well. So I'm going to stay with these small ones for now. Okay, so the size I just put in was too small to get two of them side by side, so I'm going to go up one size. And if I get this guy down at the bottom, I'm going to go ahead and put him down there. Okay, he fits perfectly down at the very bottom. So let's go with the next size up, and I'll put it up here. Okay, for the next one, I'm going to get two of the smallest ones, try to get them side by side to fill in that space. So there's really no rhyme or reason for the exact size you're using. You're just trying to fill in as much as possible. So I think the next thing I'll do is fill in right here. Then I'm going to put a lot of these SS20s around the cup. And I'll do that off camera. That's something you saw me do up here. So just from watching that little bit, you can get a feel how tedious it is once you get up into here. So I'll work on all the rows. Then at the end, I'll probably just speed through a lot of this. I think you really got a good idea right here when I did this of how it works. Now I have a little bit more to go. Here's a sneak peek at the name. And notice I still need to get all my smaller stones placed around the name, but this is going to be done pretty soon. I'm finished with my tumbler and it is beautiful. I love this tumbler. While doing the video, I learned a few things myself. I haven't done a lot of these, so I'm still in the learning process. So I want to share some things that I didn't talk about in the video with you. Some of these are things I knew when I started from watching other videos. Some I had to discover on myself. So I want to give you all the information that I have. First of all, with my little precision tip bottle, I was finding that the metal stem in it was getting clogged and it was really hard for me to squeeze. It started getting very hard to squeeze. And I am older, so I don't have the grip strength that you might have. But what I found was I took the little stem off. This is still a very small and manageable size. It's not like the bigger hole that the original bottle has, so I found that to be very helpful. All I did was I took some pliers, I squeezed on this. You do have to kind of twist and pull, but it will come out. Now the second thing I wanted to talk about is I introduced 3 glues at the beginning. The reason I like liquid fusion is because it's clear. The others are white when they go on, then they dry clear. Now some people might prefer that so they see exactly where the glue is. For me, I want to see where I've set my stones down. And what I found in the past when I tried the white ones was it just confused my brain. So use whatever works for you, but that's why I chose the liquid fusion. Now I talked a little bit about this during the video, but I want to talk about the order of how you put the stones on. I started at the top. I think I showed you some lettering, but then mostly what I did was I put all these SS20s on all the way down and all the way to the very bottom. I left it open around here. Once I got to the bottom, I filled in front of the name, and then I worked my way up and in. Now at the bottom, you may not come out perfect. So what I had to do was, and it's hard to tell because it blends in, this stone right here is an SS16. So I made sure when I did the bottom rows, I went from one side to the other because I didn't want an odd size stone in the middle. It's camouflaged much better over here than it would be here. The other thing that I discovered was as you're putting these stones on, and I tend to press down on them to really get them to adhere to the glue. When you're working with such small stones and you're pushing them down into the glue, it gets a little messy. So you're getting glue on your finger. Sometimes you're pulling the stone back up. So what I discovered was put the glue down, put the little stones in, let them sit about 5 minutes. Then I took this little piece of wax paper and I actually put it on top of the stones. And then I rubbed just like that, really hard. And then I lifted the wax paper up. And I didn't have a single stone come up with the wax paper. So for me, I decided that was a much better method in placing all these small stones. And then the very last thing is to clean this. I'm going to wait 3 days until after I've put the last of my liquid fusion on here. Then after those 3 days, I'm going to scrub this with some dish soap and a toothbrush. And I'm really going to scrub it. If your stones are on the way they should be, you are not going to knock any stones off. If you knock stones off, then you know when you give this to someone, you're going to have stones fall off. So to me, it's a good way to clean it. You really get in there with the bristles, and it's a good test to make sure your stones are solid. Okay, I forgot to tell you one thing. So let me tell you one more thing. What I found after doing this for a long, long time is my eyes were getting tired. And for me to really see how those small stones were going in, I use this magnifying glass. Maybe you need it, maybe you don't, but for me it was very helpful. So for those of you that made it this far, thank you so much for sticking around. If you have any questions about how I did my process, leave them in the comment section. Or if you have any general questions, ask them. If I know the answer, I'll let you know. And if I don't, I'll be honest. Thanks again for hanging out with me today. Until my next video. Bye-bye.